Welcome back to Elgin County Living. Over the past several months, colorful patterned squares have been popping up all over the barns in Elgin County and southwestern Ontario. We speak to Mike Baker of the Elgin County Museum about the phenomenon of barn quilt trails. We'll also speak to Mike about what's going on at the Elgin County Museum.
So, we are back on the 4th floor of the Elgin County building with Mike Baker, the curator of the Elgin County Museum. We're going to talk a little bit about the museum and a little bit about the barn quilts. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about what's going on here at Elgin County Museum.
Well, we have a couple of great shows on for the summer. We've got an exhibition on historic bicycling, which some people might not know, but early bicycling actually started in Elgin County. We had the organizers of the Canada Wheelmen's Association come from here, a guy named Mr. Brierley. And of course we had a guy named Dr. Doolittle, not the Dr. Doolittle you're thinking of, but another Dr. Doolittle who was instrumental in forming that association and also invented the brake system that lets you pedal backwards and stop your bike. So thanks, Dr. Doolittle. There'll be a lot of people in pain right now. So we have an excellent loan collection from a collector from Kilworth, Rick Wolf. So we have 4 pieces and our own high wheel, 58-inch high wheel from made in Brantford, which is fairly rare. The other show we have right now is War of 1812, or start of the commemoration for the bicentennial of the wars just started. And we're featuring another local guy, a couple of local guys, Colonel Malin Burwell, who has the unfortunate notoriety of being taken prisoner towards the end of the war and spent 6 months in Ohio, which I'm sure lovely place now, but I'm not too sure about 1814. So remarkable thing about Colonel Burwell is he kept a diary of all his adventures while he was incarcerated. Actually, he wasn't sitting in a jail, he was given the freedom of the town, so he walked around, visited the legislature, visited churches. So we have a representation of him. We have some surveying equipment. He was, of course, the man who laid out the Talbot roads and surveyed most of the townships that Colonel Talbot granted land for. So we have surveying equipment that he actually used on loan from Museum London. And the other local guy we're featuring is a guy named Garrett Oakes. Sort of Colonel Talbot's the sort of the top end of society, and Garrett Oakes is just one of our basic average settlers. Settled on Talbot Road 1810, around then, just in time to get forced into the militia to go and fight the Americans, which I don't think he saw a whole lot of action during the war, but it's interesting that whereas Colonel Talbot left a diary, Mr. Oakes left these great reminiscences that were printed in the newspaper in the 1870s. So it tells you just basic life that they were going through, some of the hardships, some of the things they figured out to do to keep the marauding Americans from stealing all their cattle, all their bees. Americans have a big fascination with the beehives. We seem to have a lot of bees. I think it's because it was a cheap way to get a sweetener for food and for drinks. So the Americans looted all our bees. So we've got some reminiscences of him, of Garrett Oakes, and we've got some of the tools and equipment that would have been common for someone of the era of 1812 to have around the farm.
Fascinating. And what do you have upcoming for later in the summer and fall?
Right at the end of the summer, we're switching the exhibition space to a show on an architect named J.T. Finley. Finley was very prominent in St. Thomas and Elgin County. Most of the schoolhouses built between the 20s and the 40s were probably built by T.J. Finley, or J.T. Finley, and we're sort of featuring a lot of the schoolhouses in the show. It's amazing the number of schoolhouses that are still standing in Elgin County, not just from that period, but back in the 19th century. So we're kind of featuring the schoolhouse as a big part of that show. It'll be mostly photographic, but we have some plans. We have some plans of Mr. Finley's. And I think we'll bring out a few of the things that relate to building, construction, designing, things like that. So that'll be our featured show for the fall.
Great. Now, if people want more information on the shows or your hours, where can they go?
They can go to our website, to elgin.ca, look for Community and Cultural Services, and that'll list the archives, the library, and the museum. And they can get our hours and information and everything there.
Perfect. Now, moving on from the museum, let's talk a little bit about the Barn Quilt Trail. So how did that whole trail get started?
Well, the Barn Quilt Trail was a thing that really appealed to the Museum Association that Elgin County Museum and most of the museums in Elgin County are part of. We thought it would be a great way to bring some profile to our individual museums, but also to bring like almost a brand new tourist attraction to the county. So folks in Wardsville had done a great tour in 2010 to mark their bicentennial. They came to us and said this would be good for your association because it covers a large territory, Elgin, Oxford, Norfolk. And we said, sure, we'll give that a try. And we applied to what was then the Sand Plains Fund, part of the SCORE area. And they said, sure, tourism, that's what we want to encourage. So we got a very generous grant from them, and that paid for 100 quilts, 8 by 8 size quilts that are in barns all over that territory. So Elgin, Oxford, Norfolk, also Middlesex and Brant, and the city of Brantford. So we each have 20. Each of those counties have 20. But as far as I know, ourselves included, more are being done. So it's going to be a pretty big network. But it was the mix of local, rural, and draw attention to our rural roots, to barn structures, which are sort of disappearing at a pretty good rate, actually, the historic 19th century barns. So it draws attention to rural history, and in the best case scenario, the pattern and the design that goes on the barn actually relates somehow to the history of either the immediate community or to the farm itself, or to some part of the village they're in. We have a couple in Sparta, for example, and they relate to the buildings that they're on. So it was a great way to do local history, but it's also something that seems to be certainly a very big phenomenon in the States. So we're hoping we'll get some visitors from there, but we're also hoping visitors from elsewhere in Ontario will come and look at them.
Great. Now, where can people find the trail map for Elgin County and the rest of the region?
The basic information is on Barn Quilt Trails with an S.ca. That's the dedicated website for the barn quilts. They can also go on the Tourism Elgin site, and we have a link to that, and we have a downloadable map for Elgin County on the Elgin Tourist site.
Perfect. And are there hard copies available as well?
There are right now. I'm not too sure how far into the summer they'll survive, because they're a nice guide, and I know we've got a lot of requests for them. It's a guide with each individual barn quilt described in it, and a map of each of the counties. So it's very popular.
Yeah, so you've been getting great feedback about the trails.
We have, yeah. Probably have more interest on that as a single project than anything else since I've been here anyway. So we're very happy to get the response we've had.
Great. Well, thanks for all that information, Mike, and for your time today.
Thanks.
Back to you, Catherine.
Thanks, Kate. Make sure you head to the Elgin County Museum this year to check out their extensive permanent collection. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back on Elgin County Living.